Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you're watching in. My name is Maggie Cavanaugh. I'm your host, The Keys to Your Best Life. And I have a dear brother in Christ, person that I've known for a while, Mr. Sean Wyman. And Sean is such an awesome guy. He is a police officer of over 20 years in serving Florida, one of my favorite states. I was sharing with him, I lived there for 20 years, so it makes me feel good that you're there, Sean, because I got grandkids in that state.
Yeah.
But Sean is a author, a speaker. I mean, the list of accolades, I mean, I could just go on and on with all of his accomplishments, but he has been working on some really neat things in the last year. And we've got some exciting things to talk to you about trauma-informed care and the line that he works in. Sean, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, thank you so much. So excited and such an honor to be on your show.
Well, we've been trying to make this happen for about 3 years. And and I was telling my husband this morning, I said, I believe everything is the timing of the Lord. And so I know a couple of years back, I wanted to get you on here because of this great book you wrote. And we got a copy of this. But now Sean's done more things. So I guess the Lord wanted to wait until he had more great things to share with y'all. But I want to talk a little bit about Sean's past. And I want you to go read his bio because it really, listen, this is the real deal. I believe that when people go through certain things in life, it gives them not only the stamina to understand and be compassionate for others, but it also gives them a spiritual authority in some areas to help people break free from mindsets, especially those of you that have been abused. And Sean wrote a book called The Movement Process, or Let It Go, The Movement Process. And y'all know that letting it go is a big, big thing. Letting it go is a big thing. And so, Sean, why don't you talk a little bit about your personal testimony, if you will, a little bit about this book? Don't give it all away. I want them to go and get this. I know it's
right? I know. And well, first of all, thank you so much. Thank you to your audience that's watching. It's an honor to be here. Like many millions of people on this earth. I went through some really challenging, adverse experiences growing up. My mom was a single mom. My dad left when I was born. I went into this situation where my mom met a guy when I was around 7 years old. It was a very challenging time. I went through mental and physical abuse for over 3 years. And my dear sweet mother, she ended up going through abuse for over 30 years with this guy. And, the book kind of focuses on that journey and the challenges that we faced. When I was 10, I made a life-changing decision. That was one trigger pull away from my life changing forever. And I thank God every day that that went the right direction and not the wrong one, because God only knows where I would be or what I would have ended up as based on that one decision. And it's really important for us to understand that there are singular moments in our lifetime that will predict our futures, and we don't realize it in the moment. And we don't really end up realizing it till much, much later. And that was like the same for me. I went into foster care after that. I was in foster homes from 10 to 18. I share some of my journey with that. I found a negative coping mechanism, as I call it, called alcohol, which became my vice from the age of about 12 to 27. Went into the military. I was an Army Ranger for 8 years. I was blessed to, go through one of the most amazing schools and graduate, even though I almost died. I share that in the story, how I almost died. And then went into my passion, which was law enforcement. And it's interesting because when I showed up to become a police officer, I genuinely wanted to serve and help other people. But I also did not want to be broke because I'd grown up in poverty with no running water and no electricity and having to steal to eat. I had to wear the same clothes to school. I lived in a minority neighborhood where I was the minority, and I got in fights every single day. So on top of getting beat up by my stepfather, I was also getting beat up outside of my home environment as well. So I was facing it from multiple dimensions. And I know when I became a police officer that I wanted to help people, but I never wanted to fall back into those dark places where I was in my life before.
Sure.
And here's another thing that maybe some of your audience might be able to relate to. I thought that you could take all your negative stuff And you could just like pretend like it never happened, right? You could just take it, put it in the back of your head, pretend like it never happened, and nobody would say a thing, right? Because nobody knew. Only you knew. And as long as only you knew, it couldn't hurt anybody. And it really couldn't hurt you because you just thought you could just tuck it away and forget about it. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And, when I became a police officer, my past was drawn out of me because of the people that I was interacting with that were triggering me, that were pulling emotions out of me that I didn't even realize were there. And again, I told you earlier, you don't recognize in the moment how impactful that moment is going to be until much later in your life. And then much later in your life, in some moment, you'll reflect back and be like, holy cow, man, I went through that. And that was to get through this, And so very challenging to say the least. So the book really focuses on my story, but more importantly, man, and this is the exciting part about it, I didn't want this story about, this poor Sean Wyman. And I wanted, look at how Sean Wyman went from a victor, not to a survivor, but a winner in Christ, right? How God was able to take me and pick me up and dust me off when I was in the weakest position I could be in and say, hey, there's so much I want to do with you, but you can't let go of your past. Only I can let go of your past. And you have to go back and deal with it because that's the only way I can help you to let go of it. So I went through this whole process that I call the movement process. And it was so powerful and so invigorating and so holy that I wanted to share it with the world. I wanted to give it to every single person that would listen and would read the book. And so through God's divine, and I actually share in there how I got to the place where I even wrote the book, because I didn't want to write a book. That was not ever my idea, was to write a book. And not only, a lot of people don't know this, that book was written in less than 30 days. Not only was it written, it was formatted, it was edited, it was graphic designed for the cover, and it was published in 30 days. And that book has been so powerful, man. It has been a calling card, man, to be able to get in people's lives, to help people that are hurting, to serve people in such a unique way. It's been really, really special.
Sean, I remember when the Lord inspired you to write that, and I knew a little bit of your testimony, and I was like, God's going to use it. He's going to use it. I'm a firm believer, Romans 8:28, that he works all things together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And so, whenever he takes that broken mess and turns it into a message to take and not only to transform our own life, but to use it to help others, that's so powerful. And I can see where in law enforcement, where there would be a lot of triggers, on a daily basis and dealing with that and so forth. So for those of you that don't know, Sean and I met on Periscope. We were fellow scopers and we were in a couple groups together. And I used to love just hearing what God was doing during this time. And it's true. This came out like it was a download. It was a complete download. It's almost like Father God said, Sean, I'm going to take your boo-boos. We're going to look at them. We're going to fix it. We're going to package it up. We're going to send it out and help other people to deal with their boo-boos. Yeah. And so y'all check this out. It is on Amazon. Sean, is it available anywhere else?
No, just Amazon. Well, no, I mean, anywhere online, obviously. You can get it through Books or what is it, Barnes & Noble. I believe it's on Walmart on their online platform now. It's pretty much any online platform. But if you just go to themovementprocess.com, it'll take you right to the link to get the book.
Excellent. So I know that this was something that was going on the last couple of years, but now you've got this Beyond the Call. And I know that your heart beats really strong for this. And you were sharing with me about your co-author and the movement of what God is doing to use this to help so many people in public safety and, just putting communities together and helping people with, and I love this, y'all. Listen to this title. Y'all know how passionate I am about emotional and mental health. And this is a mental health fitness. Did I say that right?
Yes, mental health fitness.
Mental health fitness. So, Sean, talk to us about Beyond the Call.
Ooh, man, this is my baby, guys. I'll show you a little picture here.
Yes, please.
That's my baby. This book started out 926 pages. It was like that thick. I still have it in there. The original monologue that we put together. of this book, and we had to get it down to under 300 pages because we wanted it to be marketable and affordable, because I wanted to put this book in as many public safety professionals' hands as I possibly could. So the book is called Going Beyond the Call: Mental Health Fitness for Public Safety Professionals. A lot of people don't realize this, but just in law enforcement alone, we as a profession, we kill ourselves more by our own hand than anything else that we train for that could kill us. Let me let that sink in for a minute. We kill ourselves more than anything else we train for, more than the firearms that are shot at us, and more than the high-speed pursuits and crashes that we get involved in, and even more than the fights and the defensive tactics situations that we get in where we have to use force. We kill ourselves more. When I found that out, and as a trainer for the last 18 years, I felt like I had failed miserably as a trainer because I didn't understand this until after I wrote my book and I got into the social services industry and I started telling my story and I started learning this thing called trauma-informed care. Now,
Yeah.
I did not create trauma-informed care. That is not the Sean Wyman mark. That is not me. I didn't create it. But it was created with the idea in mind to help people to understand trauma, to be better informed, to understand how it interacts with them and how it can interact with other people and the effects that it can have on people. And when I saw it and I started to learn about it, and I was going to these conferences and workshops and started talking to the subject matter experts, I realized there was great value.
Yes.
I also had a very humbling experience because I recognized that the people that I wanted to help, I was hurting more people than I was helping because I didn't understand their trauma. I didn't recognize this thing called ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, and the effects that had on the communities that I was serving. I didn't recognize how that affected me because of my own adverse childhood experiences that up to that point I still really had not really dealt with until I gave all of that to God and said, I don't want this anymore. I'm giving it to you, and I'm just going to let you do whatever you want to do through me, and I'm going to trust you. And that's what led to creating this book, because I realized how powerful trauma-informed care was. I recognized that it was a huge need, and this was way before these riots and COVID-19 and all the anti-police. We had no idea that was coming when we wrote this book. None. All we knew was there was a high suicide rate. And as we started to do more research, we found out firefighters are killing themselves and they have high depression rates. Emergency medical services has high depression rates and suicide. Corrections has high depression rates and suicides. Dispatchers, and it blew my mind. I was like, holy cow. It's not just law enforcement that has this problem. Public safety as a whole is a self-destructive industry because of all the trauma that we face and the social emotional challenges that we face day in and day out with lack of preparation for it. And I realized how important that was. And I decided that I didn't want to be just the guy that showed up and goes, we have this problem and we need to do something about it. No, I wanted to bring a solution. And I felt like trauma-informed care was a great way to do that. So I took the ideology, if you will, of trauma-informed care and emotional intelligence and authentic communication. And my partner, Dee, or Deirdre von Krauskopf, right? We call her Dee, right? You understand now why. We came together and we put this book together and we put these training programs together. And our purpose is to get out there, train law enforcement agencies, public safety agencies, their spouses, their families, to help them to be better prepared to deal with the trauma, to deal with the devastating moments, and to be able to deal with the social emotional challenges that we have to face in our industry day in and day out.
Wow. Sean, this is so incredibly important. I've gone through the trauma and I've gone through the certification in Tennessee. And when I first went through it and they handed out the questionnaire of all of the ACEs, and I had 17 ACEs. And for those of you that don't know, how many is there 20 or
10? There's 10.
Okay. So the one I had was a very intensive thing. And
apparently.
There was 20 things. And it was,
wow.
It probably went in more to some other areas as well.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like, I looked at those ACEs and I thought, No wonder I made the choices I made when I was young. No wonder the enemy was able to use my trauma, my pain, and all of the things I had gone through, because it's a real deal. And we do have to be sensitive to others in that area. And we all, need to be educated in this area. I love the fact that it is being utilized in these high risk areas, because we value, and for those of you, if you're watching this, if you're a police officer, you're, first responder, if you're in any area of, public safety, first of all, we want to thank you. I want to thank you personally from this broadcast, and Sean, representing you all today, talking about the tough stuff. And this is what we do on Keys to Your Best Life. We're here to inspire and encourage and lift people up, but we also talk about the things that people don't like to talk about. Because nobody wants to focus on that. They're like, oh, that's so negative, but they don't understand, if they get the training and if they get an understanding, they start to get a sensitivity towards people that have been through these areas, and they start to understand their own triggers. So Sean, we were talking before the broadcast about, this is something that you can use, and you guys want to expand out in areas for, counselors and social workers and so forth. This is, even though this is catered to a certain group of people, would you not say that this is something that everybody could benefit from?
I would, Maggie. And I would say that here's the challenge, right? A lot of people walk around going, hey, I'm trauma informed. And they're like, hey, I'm trauma informed. But when you ask them the question, one simple question, how do you implement it? It gets dead silent, because everybody says they're trauma informed because they went through a training. But like you went through, you got certified. That's incredible, right? I got certified. It's because I saw the value in it, and I wanted to be a certified trainer in it so I could be able to really deliver it the right way.
I had to, because I'm a counselor. So
but the problem is the lack of implementation. So I don't want to just go train police officers. I actually want to teach them how to implement it. Implement it in your personal life. Implement it in your professional life. Implement it in your agencies. Implement it in your training. Implement it in your policies and your procedures. Implement it through your administrative staff. Implement it through your jails. Implement it through your judges. Implement it through your attorneys. And so trauma-informed care works up and down the right way. Right. So it doesn't have this a broken middle, because as well as I do, in order for trauma-informed care to really be effective, everybody's has to have buy-in.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to be able to get these tools and so forth out to the people, to be able to utilize it and implement it. Getting the knowledge is the first step. But, I love how whenever you did this, you went a step beyond. You're like, okay, I see the problem, but what can I do? What is my role? And a lot of people think that, well, I don't need that. For those of us that are professionals and we're required to have continuing education, we get dibble dabbles of all of this stuff on a regular basis. And a lot of times it's like, wow, now I know why we need continuing education, because things are changing, and we need to I know personally, I do a lot more coaching now than counseling. And, people say all the time, well, why do you coach instead of counsel? I'm like, because I like to help people go from where they're at to get to where they need to go. I spend a lot of time going back and looking at the other areas, but I'll tell you, the things that holds people back are those experiences, those adverse childhood experiences that they think is somewhere they've created in their mind that things will never change and this is how it's going to be. And then you've got, a large percentage of people out there looking through the lens of pain.
Absolutely. And look,
decisions on pain.
If you don't get this book for any other reason, get it to learn about ACES, because ACES is a huge game changer. If you recognize, if you're listening to this right now and you go, man, I got abused and I never dealt with that. My dad was incarcerated, or my mom was incarcerated. I never dealt with that. My brother or sister sold drugs. So, I had to steal. I watched my dad be an alcoholic or a drug user, whatever the case may be. I was sexually abused, or I witnessed it. There's so many things that, out of those top 10. But really understanding that you can't run from your past. God doesn't allow it, man. It's very clear in the Bible, too, that you cannot run from your past, that you have to face your past in order to really create your future. And
True.
it's so important to get that message out there, especially today, especially when there's so much uncertainty in the world and so many people are in that lost and found mode, trying to figure out what is going on, what am I supposed to do. It's so important to really know who you are, what you represent, and who you represent. I teach my kids every day, who do you represent when you walk out the door? Who do you represent? And for them, it's God, it's themselves, and it's their family, right? So that's kind of having that identity and being able to know who you are. Look, you don't forget your past, right? This isn't about forgetting it. And look, when you discover that you need to do something about it, it still takes time. When you eat a lot and you become overweight, you don't just take a magic pill, although a lot of people want you to think you do, and you just lose the weight. No, it takes time. It takes discipline. It takes consistency in addressing the problem of losing weight in order to lose it. It's the same thing with your trauma. It took a long time to get there. It took a long time of storing it and putting it away. It's going to take a little while to get rid of it, or to get to a place where you have balance with it and you can move forward with your life. But I promise you, it is worth it.
Oh, wow. So worth it. I tell people all the time, it is worth the work, because it is work. You have to be intentional, and, you have to make sure that you understand, over the years, it took me a long time before I finally recognized that I needed to get help. And then, hence why I ended up with a master's with counseling, is because, I wanted to fix other people. And, because as long as I was looking at other people, I didn't have to deal with me. But somewhere along that line, and whenever I became a Christian, God started saying, it's time to put this away. And so, some people they go into a method of getting their healing, or getting their, dealing with their past and so forth, however you want to put it, whatever circle you're in, but they'll get stuck in a certain area and they'll stay there. And, I always tell people, you go back, you deal with your past, and then you put it in a proper place. And once you put it in a proper place, you're able to move forward, and you're able to pull from that strength to help other people that have been down that road. And that's exactly what I see in you, Sean, is that, what the enemy meant for harm, God turned around for good. Absolutely. And, he took all of that stuff and made it to where, but, listen, guys, this could have been completely different. Sean could have got so stuck in the trauma that he did not pull out of it. And this is why we're saying, face it, deal with it. It's not easy. It can be painful. It can take time. Like he said, it didn't happen overnight. You won't get over it overnight. But the fact of the matter is, to do nothing will keep you right where you're at. So, wow, Sean. So, I know that you are a speaker. And I know that you and Dee, or Deidre, maybe I don't know her well enough to call her Dee, but
no, you can call her Dee. Absolutely, she wants you to call her Dee, please.
So, do you two travel? I know with COVID things are limited. Maybe you do things on Zoom. Tell me what's going on. How would, if someone is watching this and they are in leadership in their precinct, or if they are in some area and would want you guys to come speak to their group or do Zoom, what are you guys doing in addition to the book to get this out to the hands of those in need?
That's a great question. We have a phenomenal training program that we launched about a year ago, and we were really starting to gain traction. Of course, COVID-19 hit. We actually recorded one of our trainings. We're breaking it up into modules right now as we speak, and we're looking to launch that here really soon. So you'll be able to go online and actually do the training online, so that you don't necessarily have to come meet us face to face. However, the best way for us to do our training is in a group session, 30 or less. And Dee and I, we will go wherever we need to go, and offer this training. And really, we have a 1-day training that focuses just on trauma-informed care policing, and then we have a 2-day training that focuses more towards not just the trauma-informed care policing, but the implementation as well, dealing with emotional intelligence, ego states, and understanding the psychology, the physiology, all the different aspects that go along with trauma-informed care. So you really get the whole thing that you need in order to get this tool. I call it a trauma-informed emotional adversity management system that you have when you're done with this course, where you have this tool now. So when things happen, or you go into traumatic situations or highly emotional situations, you have the tools in place to stay rational in the most emotional situations so that you can come out of it and be able to address it on the other side. And that's what's really important, is helping our first responders, our officers, of course, and our public safety professionals to understand how to address those situations and have them prepared before it happens.
This is such a valuable tool. It needs to be in the hands of pretty much everyone, but specifically those areas that you cater to. And I know you probably I have some friends that are in law enforcement, and I know that whenever, a lot of times I literally asked someone recently, I said, how do you deal with all of that stuff? And she's like, it's just, you get used to it, and I'm like, yikes, I can't imagine day in and day out, the things you see, the things you hear, what you're exposed to. It's just, and now with this whole, people bashing y'all and being mean to you on top of it, it's like, Lord, help them, to cope with all of this. And I love that you were inspired before COVID, before defund the police, before all of that. God knew, he knows the end from the beginning. He knows what we need when we need it. And he took Sean through his own journey of getting his wholeness, to put him in a position to team up with Dee to get this out to the masses. So if you are that person, it's real easy. The website's real easy. I'm looking at it right here. I love how Sean put it in there. It's GBTC911.com.
Yep.
And this is going beyond the call is a tool that you need to have. And so if you are an educator, if you are a counselor, you're a social worker, if you are just someone that needs to understand a deeper understanding of why is it that my neighbor's kid does these things, or why is it the student in my class act like this? Most of you are familiar with ACES, but this goes deeper into that. And I love the fact that it's talking about, the psychological part is, because our brains are so complex. Yeah. And, our belief system, it's like where the mind goes, the man follows. And if you are caught in that cycle and don't break free, you can have all the information you want. But if you don't take action, you stay stuck. Wouldn't you agree, Sean?
I do. Hey, another thing we have, Maggie, is we actually have a course specifically for administrators in these industries as well, to help them to understand how much money is being lost because of the lack of training.
Good.
When these officers are taking these mental wellness days or taking time off because they just can't grip the circumstances that they're dealing with, when these lawsuits are coming down from unnecessary use of force that could have possibly been avoided, and we're talking millions of dollars per episode, right? We're not talking a couple $1,000s. We're talking an average of $1 million or more dollars every time there's an unnecessary use of force, right? So, we do something specifically for administration that Dee does really well, because she understands the corporate side of things, and she really breaks down the HR side, the human resources side. How much money are you losing because you're not training your officers ahead of time? You're not training your public safety professionals ahead of time to be able to address these things. And what we do is we teach them how to save money and have more money in their budgets so that they can allocate more funding to things like this, to improving the mental wellness of their employees.
Wow, I absolutely love that. Listen, guys, you've got to get this in your hands and get it out to your friends. So I want you to share this broadcast. I want you to comment on the broadcast. I want you to get it out to the hands. It's Beyond the Call. This is Sean Wyman. Sean, if I was to ask you one key, would you have a key to leave the audience with today?
Absolutely. And oh man, this is one of my favorites, man. And I've really learned this along my journey. Preparation leads to preservation, and procrastination leads to devastation. So do everything you can to prepare so that you don't fall into a devastated state unnecessarily.
Wow, that's so good. I want you to say it again. Say it again, Sean.
Absolutely. So preparation leads to preservation, and procrastination leads to devastation. So do everything you can to prepare so you don't fall into an unnecessary devastated moment.
Wow, that is incredible, Sean. I so can relate to that on so many levels, because if we stay in that place of procrastination, thinking, oh, someday I'll deal with this, someday
Exactly.
I'll look at that, listen, don't be devastated, be informed, be prepared, be healed. I mean, listen, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and if people are consuming so much stuff, why not consume something that is going to help you and your coworkers and those that in your sphere of influence and around you by getting this material? Again, this is targeted for public officials, but it's not just that. You need to have this in your hands. You need to everybody should know, a firefighter or a police officer or a first responder, somebody out there, buy this book for them. Be a blessing.
And guys, this book is like $25. This is not an expensive book. We actually lowered the price because of COVID-19, and it's been down for a while. And we've been selling these. I mean, agencies have bought. I had an agency in Washington not too long ago that bought these books because they were like, wow, this is a great tool. We need to get this into the hands of our officers. So if you're looking for something that's reasonable, that you can put, whether it's a brand new recruit, or it's somebody who's been on the job for a while, or even a retiree that's getting ready to leave, what an awesome gift to give them, to be able to go in and they can open it up and they can start to dive in and go, oh, I remember when that happened. I understand what they're talking about. Oh, this is how I deal with that. There's no greater gift than knowledge, man, and being able to help someone to be able to address these things so that we don't have to, we don't have to keep seeing our brothers and sisters killing themselves more than anything else they're training for.
Well, that's some staggering stats that we see whenever it comes to those, with suicide in general, but specifically with those in law enforcement. So, Sean, I want to thank you. I would love to have you and Dee on the show again to go a little deeper into this sometime.
Well, I know Dee would love that. Dee would love that.
I would love that. We can do that, and that way they can see the female, because she's a spouse, right?
Yes.
So they can see from a spousal side, from those, from Sean's side being active in this and so forth, and see ways to help you guys, because listen, if you do nothing, you will get the same thing. So Sean, I want to thank you for being on the broadcast. Viewers, make sure you share this out. If you're watching on Periscope, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, wherever you are watching this from, please share it with a friend and get the word out, and go to the website and check it out. Get Sean's book. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.